Alright, let's go ahead and let's actually start painting this painting and making it look realistic and adding in all of our detail. So let's start by working on the skin. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to start color picking a few colors off of her face, and I'm going to paint them over here. Remember to continue to look over here in your color tray to make sure that you know where your colors are coming from so that you can learn from that. Now, at some point in time, I recommend that you do paintings or do portrait paintings where you just guess the colors and try your best, or guess the colors first and then paint them on top of your image to make sure that they match pretty close. It's up to you. But for now, let's just go ahead and color pick it because that's going to be a little bit quicker and a little bit easier. And it's the first stepping stone into learning how the colors of the skin tone work. All right. So let me go ahead and undo that paintbrush stroke I just did. So I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to start with, let's say we can start with over here. So I'm going to go ahead and select that color, bring my brush size up. Now I'm using a brush, you can see that I'm using a brush called Watercolor, and it has a softer edge and it also has a little bit more of a textured edge than this hard edge brush out here. So, whoops, go ahead and undo that. And so you want to make sure that you're using a brush that has kind of that soft edge because that's going to help you blend a little bit more than a really hard edge brush. Alright, let's go ahead and get started. So with that color, I can go ahead and paint in right here where I grabbed that color from. I can go ahead and select a little bit more of the color next to it, then a little bit more of this color up here. Pay attention to where the colors are on her face. So we get kind of this red color up here. And for now, just keep it nice and messy. We can come back and blend it all in and make it look good. We get this highlight right here on her forehead. Bring our brush size down so we can get in here in this tiny little area. And again, pay attention to the colors. You can see that we're getting, all of it is basically a reddish orange color, but some of them are a little bit more saturated, a little bit more desaturated. You'll notice that the shadow areas are more saturated. But overall, nothing is actually that saturated in this image. And that's one of the most important things for you to see and learn from this, is that even the things in this painting that look the most saturated and have the most contrast are not actually that saturated. I'm going to go ahead and take the colors on both sides of the eyebrows and kind of reshape it a little bit. Alright, let's see. Let's go ahead and grab this color right here. Now I'm going to try to not get too detailed around the eyes. We're going to come back and do that later. For now, I just want to kind of paint around them, but don't worry about the detail in the eyes too much. Now, in general, when you're blocking in these first set of colors and skin tones and stuff, the bigger and larger you can make your brush and still get some detail in there, the better. It just is quicker, gets more coverage, and it actually just kind of looks better. Rather than doing a bunch of little tiny brush strokes like that, if you can actually do a bunch of big brush strokes, it looks a little bit more painterly, a little bit more nice. I'm going to go ahead and select this light color for her cheekbone. Add that highlight in. And you can see that her face is already starting to come together. It's starting to look a lot more painterly, a little bit more illustrative. Oh shoot, and I just realized that I did not merge my drawing and everything together, so let's go ahead and do that. So I'm going to go ahead and take these two layers and merge them together now. So all that is on one layer because we want to start painting on top of our drawing. So I'm going to go ahead and kind of paint back over areas that I've already painted just to kind of start going over that drawing line. So if you haven't started following along with me yet, make sure you don't make that mistake. Go ahead and merge your layers together before you start painting this next layer of colors. And now I'm just going in and I'm just kind of blending some of these colors together while I'm doing this, because I might as well do that since I already have to repaint it all a little bit. Alright, I'm going to go ahead and select this color by our nose. We get this lighter color up here, so I want to make sure I capture that. Kind of comes up like that, and around the edge of her nostril. I'll take this darker color here and paint that around this edge right there. So what we're trying to do at this point is, now that we have the colors blocked in, this next layer of color, we're basically trying to get some more form and definition. And not only that, but we're trying to get rid of these drawing lines. So this is when we want to start painting over all of these. Go ahead and select this color right here around our nostril. Paint that in. We get this lighter color around this part of the nostril. Right now, just keep it nice and simple. Don't get too crazy with the detail. We're trying to copy exactly what you see. We just want to get the main gist, and we can come back and detail it out a little bit more later. Okay, so we have all the skin tones and everything blocked out now. We have all that form in there. Now what we want to do is let's go ahead and let's go in and let's start detailing out things like the eyes, the eyebrows, the mouth, and so on. So let's start with the eyes. I'm going to go ahead and zoom in just a little bit. So with the eyes, let's go ahead and let's start by cleaning up the white of the eyes a little bit. So just look back at your reference as much as you can. You'll notice that there's not much of a shadow like we would usually get underneath the top eyelid. So we don't want to incorporate too much of a shadow up there. Let's go ahead and grab some of that pink in the tear duct. Add some pink into the tear duct. On this side of the eye, we got this darker gray color. Let me get a little bit of some lighter gray in there as well. Alright, then let's go ahead and select this brown. I'm going to go ahead and paint the eye in with that brown. I'm going to do the same thing with the other side. Alright, let's see. Let's go ahead and grab a little bit of this white. I'm going to bring it underneath the eye a little bit. Then let's go ahead and let's select the black in the eye. We can go ahead and paint these irises in. Do the same thing with the other iris. So we're just basically doing a black circle around the iris. Do a shadow for the eyelid, like that. Then we'll do a pupil, just like that. Do the other pupil right here. I'm gonna go ahead and paint in this white of the eye. I gotta reshape this top eyelid a little bit because the drawing is a little bit off, so I'm gonna raise it up a little bit more. Great, I think that looks pretty good. I'm gonna grab some of this darker brown, put it in here towards the top of the iris, and then I'll grab some of this lighter brown color in the eye. I'll just add a little bit of a highlight down here at the bottom. We could probably even lighten that up a little bit just to make it pop a little bit more, like that. Looks pretty good. Clean that pupil back up because it kind of lost this shape of it. Let's see. All right, let's go ahead and let's start cleaning up these dark lines around the eyes. So for example, I'm gonna go ahead and color pick this color here, start painting that in, and I just wanna start painting over the brown drawing, basically. Now I'm going to grab this color on the bottom eyelid and just kind of blend that right up to the edge of the eyelid ledge. Gets a little bit lighter here in the center. Then we'll go ahead and do the top eyelid. So we'll grab this darker color and we'll just fill the whole eyelid in with this color. I need to reshape this top eyelid a little bit as well. So I'm just looking back at my reference, kind of changing it to look the way I see it in the photograph. I'm gonna go ahead and just kind of let that blend out into the skin. And get some of these lighter highlights up in here. I want to make sure I get this kind of dark area right here at this corner of the eye. Alright, great. I'm going to go ahead and soften up right here, this ledge between the top part of the brow and this cheekbone area. Just blend that in a little bit more. Grab this darker color here. Maybe add a little bit of darker color there. think this dark area underneath this eye needs to extend out further. So I'm going to go ahead and grab this color and kind of start softening that up out further. Start blending those together. I think that looks pretty good. Let's see. I think I could kind of shape this top eyelid a little bit more from the outside, like that. Then I'm going to go ahead and select this dark brown color. I'm going to paint in the crack or the crease of the eyelid. So it's basically just a simple line coming across here. Now we want her eyes to be the focal point, so we're going to spend probably the most time detailing out her eyes. And everything else can just be a little bit less detailed. I'm going to bring up my brush size a little bit and then soften up this line a little bit, so we get kind of some shading on both sides of the line. I'm also going to go ahead and take some of this darker color on the bottom eyelid right there and just paint some of that in along this bottom edge. Maybe I can see if we can get a little bit of a darker color. Try that, see how that looks. I just want to paint a little bit of a shadow along that edge. I'm going to reselect some of that dark brown. Bring up my brush size, maybe shade a little bit with that. I'm going to come back and just repaint in some of these areas so I get more of an opaque color on the eyelid, because I just kind of lost some of that when I shaded over it. Let's just make sure I get some of that back in there. Alright, great. I think that looks pretty good. Let's go ahead and move on to the other eye. So for the other eye, I'm going to go ahead and select this darker color here on the eyelid and just fill in that eyelid like I did with the other one. Alright, great. So that's detailed out pretty well now. Now, I'm going to go ahead and finish up the eyes. I wanted to save the final details for last because I wanted to walk you guys through it. Okay, so let's go ahead and let's select the color of the eyelashes. So it's basically a black-brown color. It's a really dark brown. And then we're going to bring our brush size down. And what we want to do is we basically just want to paint a line across here. So if we're looking at a reference, we basically get a dark line. I'm just going to simplify this. I'm not going to do every tiny little detail in there. Just keep it nice and simple. Just a nice dark black line going across the top of the eyelid like that. Do the same thing for the other eye. This one kind of has a curve out here towards the edge, like that. Then we get the eyelashes down here at the bottom as well. And down here we get eyelashes too. It's a nice dark black line like that. Now we can try a few different things and see what we like. If we wanted to, we could just kind of have the eyelashes just kind of come off like this. It's kind of one big solid piece. Or if we want, we can try painting in every individual eyelash, see how that looks. So we could do something more like this. I think that looks pretty good. We could probably even switch over to a different brush. I'm going to come up to this brush. It's a hard edge, but it has a tapering effect for my pressure. Just paint a few eyelashes in there. Do the same thing over here on this side. Make sure you pay attention to the angle of these eyelashes. Look at your reference. You'll see that right here. It's kind of straight up and down. And then it kind of starts to go out to the other angle over here. We'll add some eyelashes down here on the bottom eyelid. That one might be a little bit too long. I'll go ahead and shorten that up. Alright, great. Then let's go ahead, let's select this white in the eye. Let's go ahead and bring that up. I can't really grab it with the eye picker, so I'm just going to grab a really light color. It's not going to be completely white, but it's going to be pretty dang close to white. Then using my brush tool, I'm going to switch back over to my paintbrush that I was using before. This watercolor one. Bring my brush size down. I'm going to paint those reflections in there. So just kind of 3 circles. Give them kind of soft edges a little bit. Don't keep them super hard edged or anything like that. You can kind of come down like that. Do the other ones too. All right, great. And then I'm going to go ahead and grab a little bit of a brighter color, so almost white now. I'm just going to whiten in these top 2, just to really make them pop. Perfect. We can also go ahead and add a little bit of highlight into the tear ducts, just to add a little bit of wetness, maybe a little bit of a highlight right there in the corner of the eye. Add some highlights in this tear duct, and this is really just going to make it kind of pop and look wet. Alright. Maybe we could add some to this eyelid ledge. I go ahead and select a skin tone and kind of paint in this ledge back in so we can see it a little bit better on this bottom eyelid. Same with on this side. Great. And then we want to go ahead and also paint in the highlight on the nose. So bring my brush size up a little bit. I want this to kind of be a little bit of a soft edge highlight. But it basically just runs right there and there. Maybe bring the brush size down a little bit. Alright, that looks pretty good. And then another thing I want to point out is usually on the top of the lips, we get a little bit of a, you can see it a little bit right here. It's a little bit of a brighter area, so I'm going to go ahead and paint something like that in there. Just using a lighter skin tone. And then we get these darker shadow areas right after that, so I'm going to select this color, kind of paint that in right there. Like that. Alright, great. And we can also go ahead, let's select this pink color and let's make it a little bit brighter, and we can try painting in a few different highlights onto the lips, see what we like. So if we wanted to, we could just do something like we see in the photograph and just exaggerate it. Or if we wanted to, we could just do a line like that, maybe a line up here. I think what I like the best is I like these lines coming across, so I'm going to go ahead and paint them in like that. Maybe I'll get an even brighter one and do a few more in there, just like that. Great, that makes those lips look like they're standing out a lot more. I'm also going to go ahead, take this color, and I'm going to blend it into the skin tone a little bit more, and then grab that skin tone blend and blend it back in, because the edge of our lips aren't always a super hard line. Okay, let's see. Now if we wanted to, we could also go ahead and grab some of this dark color in the eyebrows. And I kept them pretty smooth, but if we want, we can go ahead and just paint in a few individual hairs in there. Maybe we could darken that a bit. Great. Let's go ahead and zoom out, see how this is looking. Alright, it's looking pretty good. Now a few more things we want to do is we need to finish up the hair, so let's go ahead, and what we're going to do is we're going to first soften up these edges of the hair. So I'm going to take this dark brown color, bring up my brush size, and I'm basically going to start blending it in. We want a nice soft edge because in our image it kind of looks like a soft edge, and we also don't want to put too much detail in there because it's not our focal point. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start lightly painting over the skin a little bit, like that. And then I'm going to select the color in between and then start using that to blend in between the two colors. And then I can use the dark color and kind of paint back over that a little bit, start closing in on that shape a little bit more, and I can grab the skin tone and do the same thing on the other side. I'm going to start using some of this darker or lighter brown around the edges to soften it up a little bit. I'm going to use this darker color and start to fill it in. Then I'm going to go ahead and use the colors for my ears and just kind of repaint over those ears so that we can get a nice crisp edge between those colors. Alright, and then we also want to paint in some of these wispy hairs we see right here. Could bring a brush size down maybe a little bit as well. could take some of these lighter colors too and get a little bit more detail in here to see the direction of the hair if we wanted to. We don't have to get crazy detailed with that. We still want to keep this not the focal point, so don't get too detailed with that. We also get a few wispy hairs coming out over here, so we want to make sure that we get some of those in there as well. Probably get some over here too. Now let's go ahead and select this color. We get a few wispies out here. And then we get all these tiny little hairs coming out over here. So we get one coming right there from the eye, well, from behind the eye. It basically just comes down like this. Let me get another one right over here. I'm going to go ahead and select the color that's right there because it's a little bit lighter of a color. I'm going to paint the skin tone right back over that so it's not being cut off. I'm going to do some really fine thin guys in here. Alright, great. That's looking pretty good. Now, another thing we can go ahead and do is we can go ahead and we can grab some sort of a brush that has spots. So let me look for one. And what we're going to do with this is we're going to basically create some freckles. Alright, so that one won't work. Let's see if this one will. Nope. So we need to find something like, maybe something like that. I think we can find something a little bit better. That might work. Alright, let's just go with the brush that I have right now. I think this will work just well. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and select one of the colors of the freckles on her face in the photograph, and I want to get a darker color so it shows up well. Bring my brush size up. Maybe that brush won't work as well. So I'm going to go ahead and look for a different brush. So now if we want to grab something like a speckled brush or something like that, I'm using one called Sparks, but there's all kinds of different brushes out there you could use for this. And then let's go ahead and let's select a brown color, dark saturated brown color. See how that looks? That might be a little bit too dark. Something like that might be a little bit better, maybe a little bit lighter. I'm going to bring my brush size up. And what we can do is we can just put a few freckle looking things in here. Like that. Maybe bring our brush size down a little bit more. I'm going to make that a little bit more saturated. Now it might be a better idea to do this on a separate layer. I already got started, so there's not much I can do about it now. But once we have those in there, what we can do is we can go ahead and take our brush. So let's come back to a paintbrush. And let's clean some of this up. So I'm going to select this color here. I'm going to lighten these up a little bit by selecting the color below them and painting a little bit on top of them. She actually doesn't have very many freckles on her neck, so I'm going to try to paint some of this out. Alright, then when we get to her face, we want to do the same thing. So I'm going to go ahead and reselect this light color on her face and see if I can get a little bit of a lighter highlight in there. I think that looks a little bit better. What we can also do is we can go in there and clean up some of these bigger, longer ones that kind of look like lines rather than freckles. So I'm going to go in there, select the color beneath it, then paint that to be more of a round shape. I'll do the same thing on this guy right here. Because if you don't do that, it's going to look more like splattered paint. Now, if you're using a brush that doesn't do that, you might not even have to do this step. We could also go in there if we wanted to, and we could paint in some of our own. So I'm going to go ahead and select the color of one of her freckles. And then using my brush, I can just go in there and manually paint in a freckle. So right there, for example, I can paint that freckle in. Or up here, I can paint in a freckle. So I'm just going to paint in a few freckles here and there. I'm going to try not to paint these at full opacity. I'm going to try to give them softer edges. Alright, great, that's looking pretty good. Now lastly, let's just go ahead and finish this off by giving it a background, a little bit of texture. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add a layer behind it. And I can just go ahead and select this blue color behind her. And then I'm just going to go ahead and I'm going to stick to the same brush that I'm using right now. I'm just going to bring it up in size really large. And I just want to kind of paint a background on her, like this. And maybe we can actually use a different paintbrush, or let's try bringing our brush size down and see how that looks. It looks a little bit better, so make sure your brush size is a little bit lower, just so we can still get that texture and it doesn't get all blurry or pixelated. I'm just going to paint kind of a square behind her like this. Kind of make the lines cross and overshoot each other. Then I can go ahead and select this darker color back here, so you can see right there by her neck it's a little bit darker. We can kind of paint that in a little bit just to make her stand out a little bit more. Alright, great. And then lastly, if we wanted to, let's grab in our special brushes, we can probably find some sort of splatter brush. You can see when we paint with that, it looks like splattered paint. There's a couple different ones we can go with. I think this one probably looks the best. So I'm going to go ahead and select the lighter blue color. I can put some of that splatter on the darker colors, and I can have some of it kind of come off of the composition, just to add some interest. And maybe I can go ahead and add a new layer, put it above this. I'm going to select her hair color and maybe add a little bit of splatter coming from her hair. See how that looks. I'm going to go ahead and use my eraser and erase all this part that got on her skin tone. Maybe I can try bringing the opacity down and see how that looks. That looks okay. You could keep that if you wanted to. I'm going to go ahead and I'm just going to delete this layer. I don't like it that much. Alright, but there you go. We're pretty much done. So there's a fully finished portrait. If you wanted to, you could also do things like smudge some of the areas that you don't want people to focus on as much. So I can go ahead and grab my smudge tool. And I'm just going to smudge this outside edge of her hair a little bit, just so it becomes more out of focus. Because if we look in the photograph, that's all pretty much out of focus. And smudge the edge of her neck right here. I'm going to go ahead and take her and nudge her over a little bit because we're getting lines that kind of cross each other right here on the blue area. This hair kind of crosses over this blue. I can even take my eraser and kind of erase it out into a straighter edge or something like that. Alright, great. So there we go. I think we're done. I'm just going to go ahead, turn this image off. I can go ahead and crop this. I'll crop it in to make it a finished work of art. So get it to where you like, hit enter, and there we go. There's our finished work of art. So what I want you to do is once you finish this painting, go ahead and post it to the Q&A section of the course and share it with us so we can see the work you're doing. If you have any questions, let us know, and I can't wait to see your portrait painting. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one.